Hi, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I hope you're having a good day. Thank you for listening. This is a fun episode today. On the show today, comedian and podcaster Tracey Carnazzo. Tracy, I know from doing comedy in New York City. She's also the host of two very popular podcasts, Teen Mom Trash Talk and 90 Day Fiance Trash Talk. Shows that reality TV shows, one's on MTV, one is on TLC, that interestingly enough, I've watched, not because I'm a super big fan of those shows, but my fiance loves them. And so we talk about those shows a little bit. And surprisingly enough, we ended up having a really interesting, lots of, you probably have heard me on the show talk music with a lot of guests, and any chance I usually get to talk music with people, because that's one of the few languages I speak, the other ones being comedy and anime and guitar players. So we talk a lot about her time working in the music industry, as well as some stories of working in when she was in culinary school. It was the kind of conversation, this is one of those conversations, like lots of ones that I've had on the show, that I was surprised by where it went. Because to be honest with you, there are some people I know a little bit more about when I interview them, and there are some people that I don't know very well at all, nor do I make a ton of effort to know everything, because my idea of how to conduct an interview is all inspired by and grounded in the way Mark Maron conducts an interview, which I've probably mentioned a few times listening to this anyway. I mean, I feel like most comedians who do podcasts owe a debt of gratitude to WTF. But my idea of how to conduct an interview is know a few things you're curious about, but then also be open to seeing where it goes. And this conversation went some really interesting places, and we talked about stuff I didn't think we were going to. So this is a fun one that I'm excited to share with you guys. If you guys enjoy the show and you want to share it with other people, that means the world to me that you would want to do that. We're on iTunes and Stitcher. You can add us to your favorite playlist on Stitcher, subscribe on iTunes, leaving a review or a rating helps, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you guys very much for listening. I'm on Twitter at Comic Will Carey. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at AwesomeDPod. And thank you guys for being here week after week. I really appreciate it. Let's go to my chat with comedian Tracey Carnazzo. I mean, that half of it, I think, even just, I'm starting to learn now, even just half of comedy is confidence. Like, just like, okay, let me put a little extra zhuzh on this bit that is like kind of there, but it's not there yet. So I'll just, really sell it.
Right.
I'll pro wrestling it up a bit.
I'm just scared that I'm going to record a whole thing and it's not going to be there.
I've done that before.
That's what I'm scared of.
I've done that twice, but it was with friends of mine, so they were understanding.
I have advertisers, so I'm like,
oh, nice.
I need this to get out when it get like.
Yeah, I know.
That's why I'm scared.
Yeah, you gotta have it ready.
I'm gonna practice. Maybe I'll practice this week so I don't have to pack up.
Yeah, I don't have advertisers yet, but I know who I would want to. How Mark Maron had his own blended coffee.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I really want if I ever get kind of famous, I want to have my own soda, from a
nice
novelty local regional.
You could be like the Jones guy.
Yeah, or my own cheer pop.
I like that.
Or cheer wine. That's what it is.
Cheer wine from the South.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it.
So you were telling me that when you were coming up to my place that you're familiar with this area. Are you from New York?
I'm from New York. I'm from Queens.
You're from Queens.
Yeah.
Which part?
Kew Garden. Well, I'm from Forest Hills. I live in Kew Gardens.
Nice. I know Forest Hills because the Ramones are from Forest Hills.
Yes, they are.
Which is, I think, the ultimate Queens cred.
Yeah, absolutely. So the guy that was going to do my kitchen, he was friends with whoever's alive in the Ramones. Who's alive?
I think one of the replacement members. The four original members passed away. So it might be CJ Ramone now.
No, I feel like there's another Ramone alive, no?
Maybe.
Oh, I think there is. I think there's an OG Ramone.
Oh, wow.
Just one of them.
So he was friends with
He's friends with all the Ramones, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Jerry Only's one of his best friends, the guy from the Misfits.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, so my friend, we made a connection. A friend of mine's playing in the Misfits right now.
No way.
Yeah, so he's like good friends with Jerry, and he came to look at my kitchen, but it didn't work out. He busted his knee and he couldn't do the kitchen.
That's a very like punk rock kind of, because all the punk rock guys I know all have a craft.
Yes.
Like they have like a practical like man's man kind of.
Yeah,
trade.
a lot of them are Italian.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that was an Italian thing.
Oh yeah, you have to do something.
Okay.
Italians aren't very smart. We're not known for our brains.
Is that right? I don't know any of the
Italians
the
are like plumbers. And where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Maryland, like a really like off the grid, remote part of Maryland.
Okay, so that's why you don't know about Italians.
I didn't meet. I didn't meet a Jewish person until I moved to outside of Baltimore.
I was going to say there's definitely no Jews there.
Yeah, no Jews. Maybe there's like three people. There's like 3 Jews. There's like 4 black people. And
did you know them all?
Knew them all. And
don't worry, that's just Fred.
And here's an interesting tidbit. So there is a Islamic library in my hometown. Now that sounds odd, right? But it was partially funded. I think I figured out on the internet by Saddam Hussein back in the day.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah,
he's really he was improving the
he was
area.
branching out, again, because for the 3 Muslim people who lived where I'm from,
that was important to him.
So I knew so I was like, I feel like I grew up in kind of the absence of world culture and had to go to New York to be around it. So I'm always a little envious of people who are born and raised in New York, and especially Queens, because I feel like, you realized early on it was weird for a restaurant to sell Chinese, Korean, and Japanese food.
Well, yes. I feel like Maryland isn't that far, but just because you're from such a small place in Maryland, I think that's really more of the problem than the location.
Right.
But we here in New York, like I grew up in a very like Forest. I don't know if you know Forest Hills.
I've been there a couple of times.
Yeah.
But what's like the general vibe in Forest Hills?
It's a small town USA. So there's 2 parts of Forest Hills, and Queens Boulevard separates the 2 parts. So there's I don't even know which is north and south, but whatever. There's one side of Forest Hills where it's like mostly houses, and it's a mixture of like Italian people, and there's some Jewish people. And that's where the Forest Hills Gardens is. So that's like the exclusive neighborhood. And then on the other side, it's like very Jewish, Bukharian, Russian.
Gotcha. The more like working class community.
They're both working class. There's just part of my side of Forest Hills that has a very exclusive neighborhood inside of it. But around that, it's just, it's middle class.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it's a white neighborhood. I remember when there was a black guy that moved across street. He was married to this Asian woman. They were both doctors. And, people say racist things and they don't even realize it. And, my mom used to say, like, I'm not racist. I'm friends with the guy across the street. I'm like, oh, wow, you're friends with the doctor across the street that owns a house across the street from you for 20 years? Wow. How you really branched out over here.
Right.
But no, I mean, we didn't have that. For being in Queens, it's not that diverse in Forest Hills. I think doing comedy is like when my life got more diverse.
Right. So you almost had like the small town America experience in this, in the most ethnically diverse county in the world.
Yeah. Isn't that the weirdest? And then,
strange,
when I went to high school, I hung out in Howard Beach, which is 100% Italian.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is just, I only know white people.
Right.
And then I did comedy and I'm like, there are so many other people besides 2 Asian guys in my class. This is great.
That's great that it kind of brought into your horizons.
It did, because I went to Catholic high school. I was always around like in these neighborhoods where it was just white people. And now I'm like, wow, there are other people in this world. There are all different kinds of people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what college and then New York City eventually was for me.
Did you go to college in New York?
I went to college outside of Baltimore.
Okay.
So, again, also, being near Baltimore, like first exposures to like, the real world,
sure.
Like people struggle. Like that kind of shit. Like you'd always read about it and heard about it, but you never you don't know what it is until you actually see someone.
Oh, absolutely. I remember. So I grew up in a house, right? My parents had a house. We had a 2-family house. And I remember
what did your folks do?
So my father was a carpenter right across the street here from you. And my mother was a school teacher in Catholic school.
Ah, nice. My mom was a teacher as well. You were saying you remember?
So I just remember like kids in my class would live in apartments, right? And I would say, Mom, they're poor. They live in apartment buildings. And she's like, honey, their apartments are nicer than our houses. Like,
right.
Like, they have a 4-bedroom apartment on a.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Like, you don't know. I just thought that if you lived in an apartment building, you were poor. I didn't know. We didn't have a lot of apartment buildings by my house.
Right. Yeah. That's because it sounds like that area of Forest Hills is like almost like there are parts of Bay Ridge that are like mostly houses.
Yeah, it's just like a
suburban.
regular. You know where it is? Spider-Man. Are you a Spider-Man guy?
Yeah.
He's from around the corner from where I grew up.
Oh, cool.
So that's the area. So it's like just a triangle roofed house. It looks like any neighborhood, any town, USA.
And like is there a corrugated metal like awning above your door? I think of that when I think of Queens also.
We have shingles, but yeah, there's a lot of those.
Okay. Yeah. And were you an only child? Did you have siblings?
I have an older brother.
Older brother.
Yeah. He's 2 years older than me.
2 years older than you. Okay. So how is he?
He's a hot mess, but he's all right. He lives at home with my mom. He's the same.
Gotcha.
He's the same. Everyone that sees him, like people that we saw from high school. I saw this guy in the vet the other day, and he's like, "How's your brother? I haven't seen him since high school." And I'm like, "Oh, same." He's like, "Same." I'm like, "Yeah, however you remember him."
Yeah.
Same.
It's like that. I just saw this commercial where someone wrote "never change" in a guy's yearbook, and then he just never changed.
That's him.
Like he was still like the same, even when he became old. He was still hacky sacking and drawing like that weird S.
That's exactly
from the
this
90s.
is the guy. This is the guy. He's
yeah, and here I also feel like maybe I feel, and I think we run in different circles comedy wise, but a lot of my friends, I remember when we were all like celebrating like really basic stuff, like because comics, you go through those first couple years in New York where you're just like on the verge of everything collapsing at any moment.
I feel like that every day.
But now we're talking about like I'm renovating my kitchen, so like things got to be somewhat on the upswing.
I've always been a regular person besides a comic, and that's why I think that even when I walked in here, right, your place is like you're like a regular person.
I try to be, yeah.
You have a fiance. You're a regular person.
Yeah.
Like you are a comic, and then you have this other side where you maintain a household.
Yeah, it took me a long time to realize that it would probably benefit my comedy career and show business aspirations to maybe not be on like the verge of like being homeless.
Absolutely, but I don't
at
think
one point.
Why is it that no one else thinks this?
You know what I think it is, and this would be great. I rarely get to talk about this. I think the grind of being in show business has become over romanticized.
Yeah.
And to the point where it's almost viewed as a requirement to go through just sheer absolute
like
pure
having
dire
7
straits.
roommates.
Yeah, like that, and that whole thing, or like when I would listen to like behind the scenes stuff of Crashing on HBO, and like Henry Zabrowski who's in Wolf of Wall Street, and he would talk about, I had 3 jobs, and I would drink a cheap whiskey to fall asleep at night, and I didn't close my window one night and snow just blowed in on me. I think
that's mental illness and addiction. That's not show business.
Right. And I feel like new comedians hear those kinds of stories and think that that's part of it now.
Sure.
Or like you have to, the whole tortured artist thing, which I definitely created. I definitely wrote jokes when I was sad, but I feel like I am more productive as when I'm not.
Sure. I mean, I'm sad all the time, but I have a house. You know what I mean? Like I live.
Sure.
So I own a co-op, but I have somewhere to live. Like I'm never. People say to me like, who's your roommate? How many roommates do you have? I'm like, I don't. I just have a 1-bedroom. They're like, so you have no one living on the couch?
Oh, nobody. Comedians who come in here, no one believes I live here.
Yeah, because this is not a place where regular people, like when you go to a comic's house, I don't know what you used to do before you were engaged or where you used to live or how you used to live, but I've been to houses where I wouldn't use the bathroom because it was like a subway station. Like there are just so many comics living, and I'm like, how do they wear shower shoes like in the shower? This is like very similar to what I would have pictured jail would be like.
I used to live in an apartment with 2 other dudes, and it got, I don't need to say anything else.
Sure.
It got dire.
It's gross.
My fiance could tell you.
It's gross, right? And that's like the part where like that I cannot relate to.
Yeah. I mean, I understand, and I understand that you have to, I understand the whole the idea of paying your dues, and I think that's important.
Sure.
But what I think the distinction needs to be made is that there's paying your dues, and then there is openly allowing yourself to be treated horribly.
Absolutely. But also, I started comedy later in my life. You know, I was 26, 27 when I started comedy. So I had already worked for years. I worked in media for years. So I had an actual job that I was saving money from.
Okay.
And I think that so many people start so much earlier than I am that they never had a chance to like really have a real job. It was always like, you know, piece together freelance things, and that's why they're all so poor.
All right. Well, you find the dream early on, and then you just think and support the dream. Like it took me a while to realize that I could work in something fulfilling that is dream related.
Sure.
But like there was, for the longest time, I thought it was like an either or, and then I never wanted to be too content in my day job, because then I would lose the hunger.
I totally get that.
You know, that's kind of where
right, because then your life's just comfortable, and you're like, you know what, maybe I don't have to do comedy.
Right.
Maybe I could just be a person.
Yeah, but if I still will contend that if the passion for something is there, you will do it.
Oh, absolutely. It's just how hard are you going to work?
Right.
You know, when your house, this is what people have told me, like they walk into my apartment, they go, "Are you rich?" And I say, "No, I'm clean." There's a difference. I don't have any, I have a 1-bedroom apartment. Like it's really not that serious.
Yeah.
But I keep it nice.
Yeah.
And people cannot wrap their heads around that. And then, you know, they're like, well, if I had this apartment, I would never leave. And there's a little bit of truth to that, because when you are comfortable at home, and I work from home, then it's like, do I want to go out and really like do 3 shows tonight? Or should I work, you know, on my podcast that makes me money, that pays my bills?
Yeah. It's kind of it's sort of like a risk versus, not even like risk versus reward, but well, what I had it, and I kind of want to trace how we got to this point, how you got to this point. For me, it started to become like, I went to college for theater, so I was originally going to be an actor. That was what I was going to focus on. But then when, as I started to get other interests, I had to become more selective with stuff I chose to work on. It's like, am I going to commit weeks to doing a play where I'm background?
Sure.
For no money? Probably not.
Yeah.
If I had a more substantial part, probably that, you know,
right.
and I feel like that gets thought of as egotistical, but you know, that's is reality. The realities of your
right. But then
life
people
and time.
In comedy, I feel like a lot of times people are saying, if you're not doing that background thing, then you don't know how, like, you need to start at the bottom, and you need to pay, like you were saying, you need to pay your dues. If you're not interning at a comedy club and you're not bussing tables, then you don't even know what it's like to start at the bottom. If you're not barking, I've never barked in my life.
Yeah, I've never barked either.
I'm too cold to bark outside. I'm too hot to bark in the summer. Like, what?
I don't have the
I'm not staying outside.
I don't have the personality to approach strangers on the street. I'm much better at like, I worked the door at a club at one point, and I've done other stuff related to that, but I just have never had the personality to approach strangers on the street. So I kind of wanted to trace this. So you said you started comedy later. Did you think you were going to be a comedian when you were younger, or no? I
didn't. When I was younger, I was super into comedy as a fan. You know, watching like old Comedy Central presents, like I was I was like a comedy nerd as a child, and no one else in my family had this interest. It was just me and the TV, and that's how it went.
Do you remember any of those specials you saw?
Oh man, let me tell you. So I went to high school. I went to St. Francis Prep.
Where's that?
This is in Queens. This is in oh God, I can't even think of the neighborhood. Fresh Meadows. It's the biggest Catholic school in the nation. And my teacher, she was my homeroom teacher and my religion teacher, Miss Alexandro. and she tells us her son is a comic and he's going to be on Letterman. And I'm like, oh my God, your son is a comic. This is amazing. I can't believe it. I love comedy. Can you bring in like a VHS tape and show us his comedy? And she she rolls the TV in, she brings the VHS tape in. It's Ted Alexandro.
I was thinking it was Ted.
And
wow.
I was like, this is amazing. I want to go to the city and see him. And I was like begging my mom, I'm like, can I just go with one of my friends? We'll take the train to the city. And I think I was like 15 or 16 when I took the train to the city and I went to go see Ted.
Where did you see him?
It was somewhere in the East Village. I don't think it was Eastville. If there was something there before Eastville,
okay,
it was whatever that was. I think it was like the 2-drink minimum, like the whole.
Sure, yeah, the whole.
And it was the coolest thing in the world. I think Todd Barry was on the show. Like it was
cool. I
was like, this is amazing. And then I met him. And I was like, I'm one of your mom's students. He's like, oh God, get away from me. You're like 12.
And was he just like doing like a 10-minute set? Or
yeah,
was
he was just doing like
no,
this is years ago. This was 1998.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was just like so cool. I was like, this is so cool. And I was just always such a fan of things like that. And then I got into theater in college and I was doing like off Broadway stuff. And I was in a theater group here in New York City.
You went to college in the city?
I went to college in the city for culinary arts, but separately from that, I joined a theater group through some friends.
Oh, okay.
And I was doing like off Broadway and I was like, everyone's like, you're so hard to direct. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you keep telling us how you want to be directed. And we are the directors. And I'm like, listen, I don't fucking need you guys.
I feel like that's one of the more that's one of the two comedian origin stories that I've heard. There's the I don't screw you, I don't need you guys. And then there's the you see a comic and then you go, I could do that.
Oh, absolutely. So I was like super cocky, and they were asking me, I remember for one of the shows that I did, they were like, hey, can you write your bio for the playbill? And I was like, yeah, of course. And I wrote that I had been doing comedy for 10 years and I had been seen on all popular late night TVs and like every show. I was like, I've done Letterman 3 times. I wrote this all thinking that they would be like, shut up, Tracey. And they printed it.
Oh my.
And they ran it and people were like, I didn't know you were on Letterman. I'm like, you didn't know I was on Letterman? And I just like kind of ran with it for a while. And then everyone would be like, you know what? I kind of knew that you did stand up. I figured you did stand up. And I'm like, these people are very dumb. This is before there's so much internet. There's a little bit of internet.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm thinking late 90s, there's maybe like a scotch of internet.
There's a little bit. I mean, this is like early 2000s. There's a little bit of internet. Not as much as we have. You know what I mean? Not everyone has a smartphone. I think I might have had like, what's that one? The Sidekick.
Yeah.
I remember no one's like Googling things very readily. You got to remember what to Google and go home and do it.
Right. And then if it's just like, yeah,
and they're like, whatever, she's on Letterman. If she says she's on Letterman, I don't really care.
But you were going to culinary school.
I was going to culinary school.
What was behind that decision?
I was like, yeah, I'm Italian. I like to cook. We'll do this.
That is the one Italian stereotype that I have benefited from.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes.
So you're like, I like to cook. And did you go to CIA or was
no? I went actually to New York City College of Technology. I majored in hospitality and culinary arts.
Okay, and
I did that program, and I was like, wow, this is really because I wanted to make sure that it was like actual college credits and not like some certificate that someone signed off on. And it's like she could cook, So I did that for a little while, and then I was like, wait a minute, kitchens are so hot.
They
I have to stand up the whole time. I'm like, at night and on the weekends. I'm like, no thanks. So I worked like a whole bunch of restaurant jobs, just as a waitress. Really, I was waitressing. I was working for the Grand Lux Cafe, and all these. I was like working for corporate restaurants, PF Chang's, you name it. I've done it. Applebee's, 2 different Applebee's.
Oh, I salute you. That was, I worked retail for like 10 years, but
I hated.
I could bear. Well, just the idea of being a server was so nerve wracking to me because I know how people can be with their food, and my right hand shakes really bad. So I was afraid. Oh, what if I drop everything? What if I drop something? So my hat's off to you. I feel like those are the two fields that everyone should work in at some
was your
point.
retail? What was your retail of choice?
Well, if we're talking, so if you did time in Applebee's and P.F. Chang's and chain restaurants, which my first retail job was at Kmart.
Oh, okay, that's a good one.
I was a cashier at Kmart, and then eventually they moved me out to the garden department because I was really good at like loading up bags of mulch and soil.
Strong man.
Exactly. It's the most rugged I ever felt.
Yeah. You're like a farmer.
Basically, I was like a retail farmer. So I would just hang out there. I would just hang out there, and my manager was this like old like Vietnam veteran who would tell me these crazy stories about like killing people.
Oh, nice.
And then he was also a Civil War reenactor, and he told me he was an extra in the movie Gettysburg, and I was like.
He was an extra in Gettysburg.
In Gettysburg.
In actual Gettysburg, not in the movie Gettysburg.
Right, the actual Gettysburg.
He was there. He's like, I'll just stand in the back.
Yeah, but his name was Ed. He was a really cool guy. I liked.
Shout out to Ed.
He was the best part of that job. So I did that, and then in college I worked at Walden Books.
Ooh, okay.
And then R.I.P. And then I did Target for a while.
Okay.
And then when I moved to New York, I did a bunch of jobs. I was a barback. I worked at Barnes and Noble. I was an usher at Radio City Music Hall.
Okay.
That was kind of cool. The Rockettes were always little.
So you're into bookstores and big box.
Basically, I never could. I applied to the Walmart in my hometown a couple times. Could never get in. I interviewed at Blockbuster, and then they closed forever.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Are you the downfall of Blockbuster?
I
still have my card.
I'd hate to say I was the one who did it, but
you interviewed and they were like, "That's it. We're going Netflix. We're going digital. Get the movies off the shelves."
Yeah, but I always felt like I had more patience for that. Like I could talk to a mom about the Nintendo Wii.
Right.
I feel like a lot easier than I could list off like, okay, so you would like no butter, but you want extra béarnaise. You do realize those are a contradiction.
Oh, so you're working brunch right now? I didn't work brunch. I was only doing dinner. I wasn't a brunch kind of girl. Right. I was like, wake up early. No thanks. I will work in the middle of the night. We are restaurant workers. We would work until like 5 a.m. The bar would close at like 3 at Applebee's. I would get home like 6 a.m.
From your experience, is the restaurant business as filled with like degenerates and like people from the fringes of society as Anthony Bourdain made it seem?
Okay, so I'll tell you this.
Okay.
I toured with rock bands for a portion of my college years.
Okay.
Working for a record label, working for the bands themselves, interning, and I have not with Southern rock bands with terrible like people with drug problems. I have never seen more drugs in a restaurant I saw way more in a restaurant than I've ever seen on tour.
Wow.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense to me because the job is so physically demanding. It doesn't pay that much.
It's nights and weekends. You're on your feet all day long. The more you work, the more you make because you're not salaried.
Right.
So I'm actually sober. I never even used to do the drugs, but I saw them. Like, it was like work a double. Just do some coke, work a double.
Wow.
And I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna try to stay up.
I'll just work the double.
Yeah, I'll just work the double without the coke. And they're like, do the coke. And I'm like, I don't really want to do the coke. I'm not really into even caffeinated coffee. It kind of makes my heart race. So I'm probably not going to do the coke.
Right.
There were drug busts at some of the restaurants that I work with. The staff was selling the drugs to the other staff members. And you knew the busboy that was selling the drugs. I mean, this guy was loaded. I'm like, you're a busboy? Come on, guy. You got a Mercedes. You're a busboy? You got a G-Wagon.
Oh, I love stories like that. Like the first time I read Kitchen Confidential, when he tells this story about, this guy and his fiance came in, and then a couple hours later, the chef was banging the woman behind the kitchen, and that's when I realized I wanted to be a chef.
100%. This is a real story. That is exactly what. everything in a restaurant's all about. Like, we're talking about right now the Me Too movement, right? So we're not supposed to harass each other.
Sure.
We're not supposed to sexually harass each other. You and I, as coworkers in comedy, are not supposed to sexually harass each other.
Of course.
Working in a restaurant in, the early 2000s, if you are not getting sexually harassed, you are feeling very bad about yourself. There's something wrong with you. Because that was all we had. It was like, if no one's grabbing your ass in the kitchen, are you worth anything? And it's so, I mean, I don't know how retail was. I'm guessing that retail was a little tamer.
Yeah, all this stuff, in retail, everything happened off the clock.
Right. No, this was in the kitchen. You just get a little boob grab and you're like, yes, this is perfect. You're sleeping with your managers, getting better shifts. Yeah.
Like it happens at all levels. Like everyone just talks about it happening at these like high, because the thing that repeats in my head most when it comes to the Me Too movement is the phrase abuse of power. And it's always talked about in like a Harvey Weinstein level against like a well-known actress or an up-and-coming actress. But that just happens with any human who has a little bit of power over another human.
Absolutely.
It happens that quickly.
Absolutely. But we were all doing it because remember, your restaurant's closing at 1. You're getting off at 2. And this is like a regular restaurant. Not like an Applebee's Bar and Grill.
Right.
Which closes at maybe 3. You're getting off at 4. Now you have to eat because now you just got off of work. Remember, your schedule's all fucked up. So you go to the diner with your friends, or we used to go to Bennigan's.
Ah, yes, Bennigan's.
Bennigan's. They stayed open even later. They closed at 4. So we get off at like 2, 3. You go to Bennigan's, you get some apps, you get some drinks. I mean, not me, because I just get the apps.
Of course, yeah.
I wasn't that fun. And then, before you know it, everyone's making out. Everyone's doing blow. And it's like, and you're like, oh, he's going to call in tomorrow. He's going to call in tomorrow. Look at him right now. He's whacked. He just had 2 mucho margaritas.
Right.
He's going to get a DWI.
Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite stories, Bourdain, that reminds me, like, they all like ended up on like the beach in Coney Island, and then they woke up and they were like getting sunburned from the sun. They're like, oh, we got to get back to the restaurant.
Yeah, that's how it is.
That's
everyone's getting DWIs. So when I worked out in Long Island,
right,
everyone's driving to work. So everyone's driving from work to the bar and then driving home from the bar. And on Hempstead Turnpike, where the bar was, there was just checkpoints everywhere.
Right.
So it was like, oh, yeah, she's not going to be in today. She was out last night with us. And, I guess she got a DWI. But the managers were like, oh, it's cool. I got one last week. Like, these aren't exactly like great humans.
What do you think it is about the restaurant business that attracts this level of debauchery?
It's the hours. It's the late night hours, hard work. I mean, the pay's not great. You're making maybe as an assistant manager. What are you, 25? Like, you're not. This isn't a career. It could be, but I'm just saying, the assistant managers, 25, 30 years old, working, 14-hour shifts in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you expect? It's not great. A lot of people move up from a server too.
Yeah, that's it. Just sounds like the system working itself out.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
And you say touring with rock bands was not as wild as that.
Definitely not.
That's funny. So okay, so you're working restaurants. How do you get to touring with rock bands?
So I was working. I was doing the culinary arts, working in restaurants, just as a server. Never in the kitchen. Too hot for me.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, I need to do something. I'm obsessed with music. High school, college, junior high school, like just obsessed with rock music.
Okay. Who are some bands you like?
So let's say junior high school, Korn, 311, Sublime. Like, I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm into it.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, that's sort of like 90s, like alternative rock,
sure.
A little bit
that's like
new metal.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. I can
Nirvana,
see it. Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of the Bloodhound Gang. Super, super into it. Now this is nice. Like the skating era, the whole grunge scene, all that kind of stuff. Then high school. I went to Catholic high school, and everyone's like, "Hey, you have to be, a little bit more normal. You can't wear that spike collar in your Jinkos."
Here, listen to this DC Talk album.
So I'm like, no thanks, guys. Stone Temple Pilots, all like I am still into it. I'm trying so hard not to be.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, the thong song, it's great, but really, you know what I mean? I'm into Foo Fighters.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm trying. In college, I was like, you know what? I need to do something creative. I can't. I could never just do one thing. It's like, you know, when I was going to college, I was in a theater group, and it's like I always have to have like an outside interest.
Right.
So I applied for an internship at a record label, and I was working for DRT Records, which they had Clutch, Guar, like, you know, some heavy shit over there, and I was working with them.
Oh, nice.
And then I got hooked up with this band in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay.
Because they were signed to Jimmy Pop from the Bloodhound Gang. They were signed to his record label, which is Jimmy Frank's Recordings.
Okay.
They later got signed to Universal, and they were like, hey, let me throw you at this band. You could tour with them.
Okay.
And I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like 20 years old. These guys were like in their 30s. They're pretty hardcore.
Yeah, I'm thinking anyone associated with the Bloodhound Gang's probably
They're wild.
a little wild, because the Bloodhound Gang, I think their last tour in Russia, they almost got arrested.
Okay, so that was when Jared wiped his ass with the flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's never allowed in Russia again.
Yeah,
He's
I think that's what
he got deported.
I read that. Yeah.
Yes, that is a true story. He lives in Germany now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's not. He's not a. He's definitely not an American fan, and he's also not a Russian fan.
Uh-huh.
He's
So you're dealing with this crew.
I'm dealing with a lot of this, the whole Jackass crew, the Viva La Bam crew. I'm dealing with all of these people all at once. The Him guys from Finland.
Oh, yeah, him are great.
Yeah, the 69 Eyes from Finland. Like this whole entire like
CKY?
CKY. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I loved that.
Jesse Margera.
I loved there's those first two albums I loved.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
good. Plastic Plan, I'll still turn on, like rock on to that
That
song.
is like my driving song.
Uh-huh.
That was like a tour song that we used to put on.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm working with all these guys, and you know, it was hard. It was really hard because, you know, to take someone seriously that's so much younger than you and so much less experience.
Sure.
And you know, it's funny because to this day, like, we're very good friends, and I'll do small things with them. I go visit them in South Carolina.
Uh-huh.
I stayed there for a long time. I worked with them for quite a while,
Oh, cool.
and then I was like, I might need a real job.
Uh-huh.
And I started working for Nielsen, which was VNU Media, which was Billboard magazine.
Gotcha. So that's like the industry. That's
Yeah,
like
so-
charting like the top 100. And
Yes, I was working on the
top
digital
200.
side in ad, you know, just like ad placement.
Gotcha. So yeah. So and what year was this?
This is now maybe 2006, 2007.
Okay. So I'm starting to think this is probably right as like streaming is like, I feel like people are still buying
Yes.
stuff.
People
but
are
it's
still-
moving towards streaming.
People are definitely still buying CDs at this point because I remember when the album came out. So the band was called Isabel's Gift, and they had an album called American Idol.
Okay.
And I remember going to Virgin, and I remember calling them because I wanted them to order a big order of the CDs. And I said, hi, I'm a fan, and this band is having this signing, and I want to buy 100 CDs. Can you make sure they're on the shelves? And I just kept calling Virgin record stores. R.I.P.
Yes. R.I.P. I never got to go to the Virgin Megastore in Times Square.
Yeah, it was the one. I think it was the one I was calling. There was one in Times Square. There was one in Union Square too, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
And I was calling them, and they were buying the CDs, and the label was like, oh my God, New York is getting so many orders. I'm like, that's crazy.
Oh yeah. Who'd have thought you should?
Right.
When they tour there, you should probably book them a bigger venue.
So
Let's move to Irving Plaza instead of Webster Hall.
they played. So the Bloodhound Gang played. This is, God, maybe it's 96, 97. The Bloodhound Gang headlined, and then the openers were Nerf Herder and Isabel's Gift. So Nerf Herder's coming back to Brooklyn this summer.
Oh, really?
In June. They're coming
cool.
to the Knitting Factory.
Oh, that's awesome.
They were at the Bell House 2 years ago. That was the first time I've seen them in 15 years.
Uh-huh.
And they remembered me, and I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
I was like, I was a child last time you saw me.
Right. That's
But-
cool that they would still remember you.
Yeah,
though.
these are like the bands that, you know, I always used to say, like, Nerf Herder is my favorite band. And people are like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, come on, guys. The Buffy the Vampire theme song.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. That's just every time I have so many things that mean so much to me that I can only talk about with like one or two people.
Yes. I understand that. And then when you find someone, I talk about nerve herders sometimes on my podcast, and like one or two people will be like, I know who they are. And I'm like, tell me everything that you know. Because you're like, there's no one that knows who they are. They're West Coast. They're, they barely play out anymore. But I'm into it.
Yeah. I recently interviewed the lead singer of the band Allister.
Ooh, okay.
The co-lead singer. And it was just such a big deal to get to talk to him because I remember buying that CD at Kmart. I remember seeing them open for Mest when I was in college and singing all the words. And then the bass player's like, oh, the tallest guy in the crowd knows all of our words. If I forget, I'll just go to him. And then great. Just like just how full circle these things come. When you were working for Nielsen, were there things you learned about the music industry that made you go, oh? Was there any kind of disillusioning moments?
I think that I was always into like I used to like really into like 80s rock, 80s hair metal.
Okay, now you're speaking one of my other languages.
So that's like I was super into them, and some of the bands that would come in, they would play. We had this little space. We were on the 6th floor. We were at where we were in the Kmart building. I know this is all coming full circle right now.
Yeah.
We were in the Kmart building by Astor Place.
Yep.
So, what's it, 700 Broadway. We were on the 6th floor, and they had this area, and it was called the Billboard Cafe, and it was literally just a few tables where we would eat lunch. And they would have bands come in and play, and it would just be so sad to me how old these people were. Because I was like, oh my God, but I thought he was so hot. And it's like, well, that album was from 81. That's why you thought he was hot.
Right, yeah.
I met Jeff Tate, and I was like, oh,
Jeff Tate.
He's so freaking old. Like he was like melting. Everyone's melting. That's what happens.
Yeah. Either that or you sort of get that like you get the like Vince Neil dad bod kind of thing going on.
Vince Neil. Do you remember when they did the recreation of Vince Neil on VH1, I think it was?
Yes.
That was amazing. When they turned him to Catwoman. Yeah. When they chopped his face up. Poor guy.
Have you seen The Dirt on Netflix?
I haven't seen it yet.
It's campy, but I enjoyed it. And Selena Kopic is really into 80s metal also.
I do. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I was, because VH1 used to play all of the like top 40 hair metal band countdown shows, and that's how I learned about like, Wasp and Trickster and Steelheart Kicks. What's in Tesla?
Yeah.
Like all of those bands.
My dogs, I have 2 dogs. I have a Chihuahua and a mini Dachshund, and my Chihuahua, they're both females. My Chihuahua is Slash, and my mini Dachshund is Nikki Six.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
both females.
Excellent. Nikki Six, I would like to interview him. He seems like
he's a big animal lover.
He seems like an interesting guy, and like I play bass too, so I would want to talk to him about I could talk to him about that.
Did you read the Heroin Diaries?
I've read The Dirt. I haven't read the Heroin Diaries. I need to.
So much better than The Dirt.
Okay, I'm gonna get the Heroin Diaries. That'll be my next.
It made me want to do heroin. I was like, this sounds so crazy.
This sounds great.
There's a scene in the book where he's in his closet. He's gone totally paranoid with heroin. And he has a security system in his house because he's paranoid. And he keeps calling the cops through the security system. And I'm like, this is who I want to spend the rest of my life with. I love this man.
Oh my, Nikki, if you listen to this, you have options.
Oh man, I love him so much.
They seem like they're pretty cool dudes, but talking about like, Motley Crue, the last tour, like Mick, Tommy Lee's
Mick died about 20 years ago, and they just prop him up like Weekend at Bernie style,
and he can still play real and
well, I mean, they have the sticks in his back, so you ever watch and you're like, is Mick dead? You have to look at like the more recent photo shoots, and you're like, I think he's propped up in the corner.
I don't know how all of them aren't dead.
Oh, I mean, totally.
The fact that like the major casualties of the Motley Crue story are Hanoi Rocks' drummer Razzle.
Yeah,
and that's like the biggest body count, and it's not any
Shout
of
out
them.
to Finland.
Yeah. This is very. I didn't think we'd be talking so much about Finland, but this is I love when these kind of things.
I worked with a
intersect.
band from Finland called the 69 Eyes.
Haven't heard them.
And they were very friendly with him. They were here. They were around. I would say like 2008. They were like here in America. It's when BAM was big, because BAM was like bringing all the Finnish rock here to America.
Yeah, gotcha.
And we did a few tour dates there with them. We were at in Philadelphia at the. What was it on South Street? What's that theater? The Theater of the Living Arts.
Theater of the Living Arts.
Yeah, we were at the TLA, and we're all standing there, and it's the whole band from Finland and their tour manager, and the tour manager was from Sweden, and we're standing, and this kid runs through us. We're standing at the top of like a parking garage that slopes down.
Yeah.
And this kid runs through us. He throws a gun on the floor and then just keeps running. And then all of a sudden, right behind him is two cops chasing after him with their guns drawn. And I'm like, oh, guys, there's a gun. And one of the band members goes to pick up the gun. Like, oh, hello, here you go. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Don't do that.
Don't touch the gun.
That's how you get shot.
Don't touch the gun. And a cop jumped and like laid his body over the gun. And they were like, we got it. And they got the kid. And he had just shot like two people down the block. And they wouldn't get off the tour bus for the rest of the tour.
Jeez.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to Detroit next week. I'm like, yeah, you should probably just stay on the bus the whole time.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
This is what happened in Philly.
Yeah, the blocks around the 930 Club in DC, not the greatest walking blocks.
Yeah.
I would say the same with the Electric Factory in Philadelphia also. But
yeah, but it's like Chinatown-ish, right? Or that's the Trocadero.
Yeah,
I think that's gone
the
too.
Trocadero.
R.I.P. There's so many RIPs in this episode.
There is like
Walden Books,
the Wrecker Theater in Towson, Maryland, where I saw so many great bands. I saw Anti-Flag, Motion City Soundtrack, Shinedown, a really awesome Beatles tribute band named the Mahoney Brothers. I saw them a couple times.
Are you a Sublime fan?
I like the one album. I wouldn't call myself.
I've seen Bad Fish like 20 times.
I've seen they played they opened for Third Eye Blind and Vertical Horizon my freshman year of college.
I was going to say that was a long time ago. Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
I love them.
They sound dead on.
I go to a Bad Fish concert by myself and sing every single song sober.
Nice.
That's who I am. And I'm like, can you guys stop smoking pot?
Yeah. Well, my thing now is like I still love going to pop punk shows, but and stuff. So but now I'm at the point where I used to get sore like from being in the pit, but now I get sore from just having to stand in the back the entire show.
I relate to that harder than you know. I remember I broke a rib at a Green Day show. And I mean, I was like drenched in sweat. And then I took a friend to another show at Irving Plaza like years later, not too long ago. And I stood in the back and held her coat. And I was like, can we go soon? I was like I'm like the mom. I was standing like with the moms in the back.
Yeah.
I'm like, can we go soon? This is too much for me.
Yeah. My whole thing now is like trying to balance my water intake before the show so I don't have to pee, but then enough so I can get through the show. And then I'm just like, just looking for that Dwayne Reed because I need a giant bottle of Gatorade after standing for 2 hours.
After standing in the moderate heat.
Yeah. Or like I saw this is another big concert brag. I saw Mike Dodie last month. Ooh. He was playing Soul Coughing's first album front to back because it's the 25-year anniversary, and his backing band and opening act was Wheatus.
Oh shit!
So that was really cool.
Where was that?
That was at Bowery Ballroom.
Okay, all right.
Super great show. Very chill show because the Mike Dodie crowd is a little bit older.
Just say it, old.
But even then after that, when all I had to do was just kind of stand and bob the whole show, I'm like, oh, I'm so thirsty.
I know. It's like you need to bring a little event chair.
I know.
So we all need to. I'm like, are there no seats here? This is ridiculous. I stood at the Nerve Herder show, and that was at the Bell House. And I was like, I found like a bench in the back, and I was like, this is very late. It was like 11:30 and the band's like, what are you doing now? I was like, what am I doing now? I'm going to sleep. It is almost midnight. What am I doing now?
I will say, as I'm sure my 20-year-old self would have been afraid of becoming who I am now, but I would like to point out to my 20-year-old self and your 20-year-old self, you're still going to the show.
I'm trying.
That's
I'm not going to shows like I used to. So I grew up in Forest Hills, and I went to junior high school with these two rappers that are fairly big now. I don't know if you know Action Bronson and Mayhem Loren.
I know Action Bronson.
Okay, so they have a show on Vice called Fuck That's Delicious.
Oh, he's on that show too?
Yes.
Oh,
so
cool.
he's the other guy.
Oh,
he's the black guy on the show.
Okay, got it.
So Mayhem and I are very friendly. They were playing at Terminal 5 maybe 3 years ago. And I was like, all right, I'll go.
Sure.
Let me tell you something. First of all, Terminal 5 used to be Exit, which was a dance club that I used to frequent a lot when I was 15 years old.
Sure.
Because I thought I was perfectly fine to be going out into an adult situation like this. And I get into the club and I'm like, oh my God, this is Exit. Oh my God, this is packed. So I get like to the side of the stage upstairs where they have like a little VIP section, and there's not as many people there, but now everyone's smoking pot. And when I tell you everyone is smoking, and I'm like, someone's got to get me out of here. Someone has to take me out of this venue, because you can't, but if you want to get out, like, it's going to take a half hour to go through the crowds.
Yeah.
And I had a friend of mine, I was like, I'm going to close my eyes. I need you to take me out of the venue. And he walked and pushed me through the crowd until I got out of the venue. And then the guys were like, where'd you go? I was like, I don't know. I can't find you. What do you mean? And I was home. It's so much. Like, to have a crowd like that, it's too much for me. Nerf Herder at the Bell House, perfect.
Right.
That was out of control.
Wow. Terminal
Just like
5.
everyone's sweating on you, and like the smoke, everyone's just smoking, and like there's no regard. I'm like, isn't this illegal?
Right. It's like, I thought you can only smoke at Karma Lounge.
Yeah.
So now this is how I'm going to trace this. So you, working at Nielsen, I love waxing nostalgic about concerts and like places
absolutely.
in New York. I love this kind of shit. So you're working in the music business. How does comedy come into the picture?
Okay, so I'm working in the music business, and as I'm doing that, I'm in a theater group. So I was doing
two things at the same time.
Yeah, so I was doing. I always need like a million creative outlets. So I was doing that. I was doing this one production with the theater group, and I was like, "Hey," I said to the director, "Why don't you sit this one out and let me direct this? Just for like, give me like 20 minutes." And he was like, "No, I'm the director."
Sure.
And I was like, "I just don't think that you're really portraying my character correctly. Like, I don't see the vision. I don't like it. And I think that you should just listen to me, because this is how it should be done."
That is something I would never have the balls to say to anybody.
Yeah, I just thought I was right.
Okay.
I was like, no, I know that this is what I want to do. And then that's when I was labeled hard to direct. And I'm like, really? I was just trying to help.
Right.
And they were like, no, just stop. So after, I lied on all of the playbills, I was like, maybe I should do this. And I just started doing it. I networked with some comics, and I was like, yeah, just book me on your shows. Never did an open mic. I was like, I could probably do like 8. That's fine. Put me up on your show. They were like, all right, do you want to like headline the show? I told all my friends, I was like, listen, I'm doing this show in Queens. It's a bar show. Come out. 70 people come out, because they had no clue I did comedy. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know? I've been doing this for years.
Been on Letterman 3 times.
Guys, did you read my playbill? They all come out. They can't believe what's going on. And the people that are running the show have no clue what's going on.
Sure.
They're like, wow, you have a lot of friends. I'm like, I do have a lot of friends. Yes. They're like, do you want to go up last? I'm like, yeah, sure. They're like, how long can you do? Like 20? I'm like, yeah, I could do 20. I had 7 minutes of material, and I did the 7 minutes of material. I didn't do bad. I really didn't do bad. It was a loaded room, but
no, I
did my 7, and then I got off stage, and the host was like, wait a minute, what? That's it? You're just doing 7? I was like, yeah, I'm done. Why? Lucky for you, I'm done already. Yeah.
So you basically you started comedy saying, oh yeah, I got this. I
totally got this. I had Chelsea Handler's brother fly in for that show, for my bar show.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What did
a
he
friend
think?
of mine. He was like, "You're
funny.
great. You're great. He's the best."
And what year was that?
This is 2011.
2011. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's about like coming up on 8 years for you.
Yeah.
Nice. Well
2011,
done.
I decided that I was a seasoned comic at that point.
Right. So you decide. So you start off season. So how was the early shows getting up from that 7 minutes to?
I remember just like being booked in Manhattan. I was like, yeah, it's not a big deal, but I'm booked in Manhattan.
Right.
Meanwhile, it was like a terrible bar shows. I just did bar shows for like ever. And then shortly after that, I started helping with some shows at Caroline's and doing some marketing for them, and they would throw me spots, and
Cool.
I just kind of chugged along.
Nice. I love Caroline's. I've never performed there, but I've been to shows there, and I think that's just like one of the best setup rooms.
Yeah, it's hard to fill. If you're producing a show there, it's very hard to fill.
Yeah, because it's like Times Square, but it's not like foot traffic kind of Times Square.
Right.
And that's not the kind of place that you're just gonna go up. It's not like LOL where you're just gonna go up and lie to
They don't
tourists.
really bark. Yeah.
Yeah. So you gotta like get people.
You have to
in
know
there
about
otherwise. Yeah. But that's like everybody cool plays Caroline's.
Eventually.
Like
Yeah.
I was really excited. Back in December, I got to see Dave Attell.
Dave's amazing.
He's so fucking funny.
I opened for Dave last year at Levity Live.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
In West Nyack?
In West Nyack. And the moment of my life where I think my brain exploded the most was the last night that I had done it. I think it might have been a Sunday night. And he was like, hey, come up on stage. This is after his set. He calls the opening comics on stage.
He did this with Emmy Blotnick.
Yep.
And Ian Fidance.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he called me up on stage, and we went back and forth for like 15 minutes. And I was like, I hope someone takes a picture. No one took a picture. So I could just tell the story and pretend that it's real. It really happened, but there's absolutely no photographic evidence of this.
That's so cool.
That was like the height of my excitement in life.
That's amazing. He's one of the few comics now that I think is just doing like just beautifully like I'm trying to think of a metaphor. You ever watch like I don't know, someone shoot like a bow and arrow and just just hit like 3 apples in the bullseye.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well done, sir. Bravo.
He's been doing it for a very long time.
That's what I think his jokes are.
His crowd work is calculated. Everything seems like, I wonder if he wrote that. And that's my favorite part of comedy. When I could watch your set and wonder, like, just for a second, as a comic, we're kind of like jaded when we watch comedy.
Right, because you're looking at it. You're not just watching it to enjoy it.
You're analyzing.
You're analyzing.
Right.
Yeah.
But remember when you weren't a comic and you used to watch comedy and you used to watch, people like Louis C.K. and you used to say like, is he just talking and he knows all this stuff? Whereas you don't even realize like this is written. And that's my favorite part of comedy is when you're listening to them and you're like, they might just be riffing.
Mm-hmm. That's how I felt when I was a kid and I was watching Bill Cosby himself over and over. He's just kind of, it doesn't have the feel of a guy doing an act.
Mm-hmm.
It just sounds like he's talking.
That's what I enjoy.
Yeah,
I
it's
always
that perfect
enjoy
that perfect intersection of craft and just comfortable
conversation.
On stage. Yeah,
it's conversation that gets me hooked in.
And
that's what I really enjoy. And that's what I enjoy about Dave. But I've been a Dave fan. I mean, did you used to watch Insomniac?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like the height of Comedy Central.
Yeah,
that was when Comedy Central really had comedy.
Yeah, I miss when Comedy Central did those kinds of shows. Like I got to talk to Tom Rhodes about when he was the Envy episode of Insomniac. When Dave went to Amsterdam back when Rhodes was hosting that talk show. Mm-hmm. And man, it was just so cool. It's also cool that he's been a professional comedian for so long and he's still a fan of comedy.
Yeah.
I feel I know some people that are my age or younger that I think are forgetting that.
Right.
Like I always try to remember, and this again I think ties into the over romanticization of the grind, is that this should be this all should be being done because you're enjoying it, even when it sucks.
Yeah,
you enjoy it, and it should. I think it should, and I think it should be fun for you first, because if it isn't, then you might as well just have a regular job.
Absolutely. I think it's still fun. I think that also, I've gotten a lot into the podcasting side of the business, which is for me very exciting.
Yeah.
I have a podcast called Teen Mom Trash Talk, and I host it with my best friend who's not a comic. And now she's getting fans. And it's
that's cool.
that's like so exciting to me.
Yeah.
Because we've been on a journey like together. We've been best friends since we're about 13 years old. And I mean, I brought her on tour with me. She sold merch for every band that she didn't even know who they were. And to have like her now into this, even though she's not a comic, and to have her like throw her right in the ring is so cool to me.
That's awesome. I'd love to talk about this a little bit, and this I think will be a great way to wrap it up. So, so your podcast is about Teen Mom? So
it's about Teen Mom. So I have two right now. I have Teen Mom Trash Talk, and I have 90 Day Fiance Trash Talk. So do you watch 90 Day Fiance?
My fiance does.
Sure.
I have. I get, and I would love to ask you this, I get anxious with the confrontation.
I love that.
So
why would we watch if there was no confrontation?
That's what and then I watch it and I'm like, that's not going to work.
No,
it would be better if you realize that now. So
you want everything to end up nicely.
That's my best case scenario, because I guess I don't quite understand the appeal of, I call them human fishbowl shows.
Yeah, absolutely. It's garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you tell me why those shows are popular?
Okay, so
from
I've been watching. So Teen Mom is a spinoff of 16 and Pregnant.
Yes, did know that.
16 and Pregnant. Then there's Teen Mom. Then there's Teen Mom 2. Now there's Teen Mom Young and Pregnant as well, which is another class of people. So basically, they've been following the same people on Teen Mom. They've been following them now for 11 years almost. We're I think 10 seasons in.
They're in their 30s now.
They're actually, the oldest ones are 28.
28.
Yeah, so the kids are around 10 years old. And it's just so exciting because I think, like, my life's all fucked up, right? Like, everyone's life, everyone has, like, that fucked up side of their life. And you've made so many mistakes in your life, and, you feel guilty for half of the things that you should have done or you would have done. I mean, do you agree with that? Like,
sure.
And then you watch these people on TV, and you're like, she has 3 kids with 3 different fathers. She's been to rehab 12 times. You know what I mean? Now she's like tied up in a trailer somewhere. Because now they have money, which is upsetting to me.
Right. That because
I don't watch them struggle as much. They're still struggling, mentally, but not financially.
Right.
And you're watching that and you're like, ha ha ha, I have it all together.
Okay. So it's like I fucked up a lot in my life. I may have given a couple of like busboy hand jobs that I regret.
Exactly.
But at least I'm not this bitch.
Exactly. At least I don't have 3 baby daddies. At least I'm not in court every other day. I mean, some of these girls have like their own domestic violence charges, their own, like, almost everyone's been arrested, been to jail, been to rehab, gotten their kids taken away here and there. It's amazing.
And so you and your best friend get to talk about this
about how much better we are than them
on the podcast.
We've been doing this now for almost 2 years, and MTV has caught wind of it. Wow. The girls have caught wind of it more than anything. And, some of them are really into it, and some of them are really not into it.
Which is probably good for you either way.
I'm into them. We've become friends with some of the cast members, and they'll be like, oh hey, we'll be chatting or whatever, or texting or hanging out with them, and they're like, did you talk any shit about me this week? I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty bad. You probably shouldn't watch. They said something really shitty about your kid. So
they're just like, okay.
Yeah.
and so MTV's picked up wind of that. So
yeah,
that sounds pretty cool. And that you've got sponsors, which that to me is outside of like who you get on a show. That's my only other measure of like, oh, that podcast, they must be doing well.
Well, as far as sponsorships go.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get a certain number of listeners, they're people take interest in that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's great. That's
I'm doing like the 90 Day Fiance one, and the 90 Day Fiance people, they're very new to fame. These girls on Teen Mom have been doing this for 10 years.
They're seasoned.
Right.
They're
so now
pros.
the 90 Day Fiance, very new, very naive. Mm-hmm. They pick up the bait very easily.
Gotcha.
Very easily. They're texting me. They're calling me. They're spilling info.
Oh, nice. So you're getting like exclusives.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
That's right. And so the new season comes back April 28th, and I am so excited because I have been prodding at these people for months on the off season.
Did that Muhammad guy end up getting deported?
Nope.
He's still in America?
Muhammad is still in America.
That's something I'm curious about. And then are you also talking to the before the 90 days
Every
people?
single person. Who do you need?
so like the guy who there was like the really neurotic guy who, this is also for my fiance as well because she's a fan of these shows. There was that really neurotic guy who went to Brazil with like buckets of equipment.
Okay, that's Paul and Carini. So they're still together. Paul, they just had a baby. And Paul came back to the United States. He's in Kentucky, and his baby and his wife should be coming soon, and they still do not speak each other's language. Years later.
Oh, that's. I mean, I feel like there are couples that have had that exact same hurdle and have made it work.
I think that girl is just really young and just really wanted a kid. Yeah, that really wants to get out of. I mean, she was living in the swamp.
Yeah. That town in Brazil looked like rural, to say the least.
A little bit.
Well, it made where I grew up look,
Paul's a maniac,
refined.
though. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah,
Paul's
he's the guy who set a fire. He burned his ex.
Yes, he's a crazy person. He's reached out. He's tried to be in some of my in the Facebook group that we chat about the podcast, and I've had to take him out of it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I'm like, no, Paul, this is not for you. Bad boy.
Oh, that's
he's
so
a crazy
funny.
person.
Oh. Well, good to know that my feelings about him were confirmed.
I'm shocked that you really had a bad feeling about him.
I know there were no signs.
Right? Was it when he went to Brazil on a boat with a lock of his mother's hair and 12 dildos? Is that what?
I mean, that's definitely.
Did that tip you off?
Yeah, that's a red flag, I think they would say. And I tend to ignore obvious red flags.
When he had to bring his police record to her parents.
And and her dad was a cop in Brazil.
He's a retired cop.
That's a special moment. They don't teach you don't see that in like movies about love anymore.
Exactly. This is
like,
real.
Here's my police record.
What do you think? Can I fuck your daughter?
I would love to see a romantic comedy where two really broken people get together and they're still broken. Like they don't fix each other.
So you're talking about like a comedy couple.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. So, like nobody gets fixed, but they just make the best of the broken world that we live in.
Right. And then like she wants a kid, he doesn't want a kid.
And then they just end up having a kid.
He abstains from sex, withholds sex. She gets frustrated.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Comes the whole thing. Then he becomes born again, but not really. It's a whole thing.
We need to write this.
Yeah, I think we can make this happen.
I think we just did.
I think we did. This is our first pitch. If anyone from MTV is listening to this,
that's a perfect network for that show.
I think so. And get at me or Tracy on Twitter. Let's make this happen, MTV. Or if MTV 2 is still a thing, if they still play music, I don't know.
It's all Viacom.
Yeah. Oh, we're local. It'll be like working with.
It'll be like a
friends.
10-minute. Honestly, it's a short film. So
yeah. So it's like back when MTV when you used to do those like little weird things in between videos. Just think of it like that. Just play it in between,
like a pop-up video.
Yeah. Great. So the podcast, the two podcasts are called again.
So we have Teen Mom Trash Talk and 90 Day Fiance Trash Talk.
Cool. And is there anything else we can plug?
Sure. You can go to TracyCarnazzo.com. I have a show in Astoria, Queens every fourth Saturday of the month at QED in New York. And also you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Trixie Tuzini, TrixieTuzzini. Excellent.
QED is a wonderful venue, so you should
QED is
definitely
awesome.
Check that place out. Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you for doing this, Tracy. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
This was wonderful.
Awesome.
Okay, folks, that's our show for the week. Thank you for listening. If anybody is listening to this that is a fan of Tracy from her podcasts, I appreciate you taking time to enter my world, my little corner of the internet. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to tell a friend. I've been really happy with where this podcast has been the past couple weeks, so I'm really excited to continue to record, edit, and share new episodes with you, and it means a lot that you guys are here. If you enjoyed this and want to tell a friend, we're on iTunes and Stitcher. You can leave a rating or add us to your favorite playlist on Stitcher. That helps boost the presence of the show, and I would greatly appreciate that. I'm on Twitter at Comic Will Carey, and you can follow the podcast at AwesomeDPod. And I'll have links in the description for where you can find Tracy's podcast and on Twitter. And if you guys want me to come do stand-up in your city, let me know, and we'll make it happen. Thank you guys again so much for listening, and I will see you next week between Awesome and Disaster. Take care, everybody.